Hello, Chris here to talk about Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and unappreciated films from filmmakers like yourself worldwide. The best part is that it's completely free. So sign up today at www.bonsai.film/subscribe. It just takes a few seconds, and once you sign up, you'll get our next newsletter on Friday morning. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film/subscribe to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives like yourself. That's www.bonsai.film/subscribe to get Indie Insights for free. Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast, and this week's Bodega Sync Indie Artist Spotlight is the one and only Morning Silk. Morning Silk is a New York-based alternative indie rock pop recording project led by Frank Corr. Signature drum and synth sounds and a wall of screaming guitars can be recognized as Morning Silk's production style. So Fun, the song you're going to hear today, it's actually the remix of So Fun, is made up of a story written in Italy about a time-traveling being from the 1700s who follows someone he found outside in his estate garden into a portal and is transported into a dance club in the future. So this is a song right up my alley if you've been listening to this podcast a long time. So without further ado, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with cinematographer Micah Simms. And please do go support our indie artist this week, Morning Silk. You can do that at Instagram at morning_silk or on TikTok at Morning Silk. That's spelled SILK. So Morning Silk at TikTok, morning_silk on Instagram. Thanks a lot for all of your support. And let's hop in. You're listening to Make It, the Indie Film Podcast.
Hello, everyone. My name is Micah Simms. I'm a freelance cinematographer, and I'm excited to be on the Make It podcast. Probably one of the biggest projects I've shot is a movie called Another Version of You, which you can see on Amazon Prime. And I'm currently shooting several different small documentaries and a lot of commercial projects. So I'm excited. I love commercials. I love that you have just a brief amount of time to make something really cool, and you probably got 5 to 10 shots, and so you get an opportunity to make some really cool stuff there. So yeah.
Micah Simms, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Man, I'm excited to have you. We've been talking about this for 2 years, maybe.
I think so.
On and off. I've been a real big flake. And but not intentionally. I find that my flakiness is unintentional, which for some people doesn't change that it's anything. It's like it's still frustrating, and then for other people it's quite endearing. It's like, oh, you really meant to, intention. It's there. But I by the way, I love the point you made about the difference just right off the bat between sort of shooting commercial versus shooting film. And I think we'll get into some of that in this conversation. Before I get too deep into sort of the directionality of the conversation and some of the things we want to accomplish for the audience, let me just give people just a slight bio, and you can tell me if it's crazy or wrong or needs to be updated. Okay. It is the internet after all. And then we'll hop in just to give them a deeper sense of who you are. Micah is a freelance photographer, cinematographer, and editor, and has a portfolio that spans commercial, music, and independent film work. Micah is based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and of course is a friend of the Make It podcast, having shot the aforementioned Another Version of You, Skakifus, which was a 48-hour film, award-winning film, And the most recent short film we've done together, we need to talk about balloons, which I think I haven't even talked about in public yet. Among many others, he has 2 Best Cinematography Awards and has worked primarily with director Motke Dapp in his independent film work. How was that, Micah? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's super fair. Yeah, very accurate.
Little bio. Yeah, it's cool. And we'll talk about Maki as well a little bit, of course. The first thing is that you're kind of you're not necessarily a recluse. I wouldn't call you that, but you are quiet, you are humble, and therefore a lot of people that have worked with you, which is quite a bit, and quite a few people, don't know a whole lot about you. And I've heard through the grapevine over the last 3 weeks, since this has been scheduled, that they're really excited to hear what you're going to say in this interview. So
it's a little bit more. That's funny.
Yeah. So just to get to know you a little bit more and see like what's going on sort of in your mind. And I thought for the audience that isn't aware of your work and isn't, and our fans all over the world, Sierra Leone, shout out to you. Our folks in Australia, South Africa, UK, thank you for holding us down like you do, Germany, etc. They're going to want to know more about the nuts and bolts of cinematography and what makes something good and bad, etc. Toolkits. And so I do want to get into that today. So we'll hop around a little bit. I want a little bit of origin story, and I want to combine it with a bit more of the technical as well, and see where it goes. If you don't like it, we can shift and move as you want. But I want to start with, I say all that to get to this question, because it will seem sort of ridiculously simple, but I think it's a good starting place just for the entire audience, meaning the novice to the expert, the most experienced cinematographer in our audience. What is the job of a cinematographer?
That is a good question. I think for me, I think the job of a cinematographer is to bring the director's vision visually to the screen. And I really see the role as like a serving the director kind of position. I think there's obviously lots of cinematographers who have very distinct styles and I'm sure are hired a lot because of that specific style or their specific ability to add to that. And I 100% agree with that. But I think job number one is, bring that director's vision to the screen in the best way possible.
I love that answer because it's not a technical answer. It's a service answer, and then it's also a taste answer. It's this idea of, every storyteller needs sort of their wingman or wingwoman, if you will. And your job is to like keep them from stepping in it, right? Give them a second set of eyes. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's all kinds of different types of directors, different directors that have different strengths and weaknesses. And so I think that the cinematographer kind of can help, they can help add to those strengths, and then they can help kind of cover some of those weaknesses. So it definitely is a wingman, a partner. Filmmaking and, making anything in general is very much a team game. There's so many people that add to what you end up seeing. And I think that's one of my favorite things about it is I love being on a team and I love working together and that multiple people and their ideas coming together to make something. And so I think like the director DP relationship is like at the head of that. And I think, it's a lot of fun. And once you find a director that you really get and who gets you, and it becomes so much easier to make the stuff that you both want to make. And there's a shorthand and ease and comfort that you're making something cool. And I don't know, that relationship and that part of a team is really cool.
I agree with you, and I think that the third head on that dragon is a producer.
Absolutely.
If you can have a producer, director, cinematographer team that work together all the time, this is kind of what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
then
Absolutely.
then that shorthand you talk about is there, and you don't have to be concerned with the professional benchmarking anymore. Now
Yeah.
you can just focus on story. I
Sure.
alluded a moment ago to sort of the mystery of Micah Simms, and part of the legend of you is that you were unusually good at an unusually young age, right? So to the point
That's
when
very
I first, yeah, when I first met you, your nickname was the Wonderkin. And that's what people were telling. Oh, that's the Wonderkin. And I'm like, okay, what's that about? And then I found out what it's about, because you do create, beautiful, beautiful shots and images.
Thank you.
It's unbelievable, and you were doing it so young. And the thing about being a child prodigy, by the way, is people catch up with you when you're 30. So it's amazing when you're young, and then when you're 30, it's like everybody's caught up with you. They had the time.
Yeah.
So, but I just mentioned that to say, to sort of get you thinking about origin story here. Your
Yeah.
uncle, you have an Uncle Jim. Is that right?
Yeah. Uncle Jim.
Uncle
That's right.
Jim's a photographer. Did he inspire you to do photography, to get into this? Or was the
Absolutely.
inspiration someone else in your family or
No.
someone else around you?
No. Definitely Uncle Jim. We grew up. I have a cousin who's basically the same age. His Uncle Jim's son, and so we were best friends, and our families did a lot together. And so the first camera that I really got to use was his camera. We would go on like camping trips, and I would borrow his camera and take pictures of flowers and people and stuff. So yeah, so that's definitely a big part of that. And then even more importantly is when I was 17, for my birthday, Uncle Jim bought, and my Aunt Julie bought me a ticket to a film camp at a place
Okay.
up here in Cincinnati called the Underground. And so, so it was a week long film camp. They bought the ticket for me. And that camp is what, that inspired my love for cinematography, for video. Like, I just went to that camp and I fell in love with it.
What do they do differently there, do you think? Like, what do you feel?
I didn't have a lot of exposure to like how stuff was made before that. We would make videos, but it was just like I was really into skiing, and so we would make these ski videos, and then in the summer we'd make jumping into the pool videos and just like stuff like that. And we would make stuff, but it wasn't. I didn't understand like what all went into it. I was just shooting stuff and
Right.
editing. So yeah, so we went to that. I went to that camp, and my cousin went with me too. And man, it was like a whole world was opened up. So it was like as soon as the camp was over, there was a TV show that was a part of that camp, and I started interning at the TV show. I pooled my money together and bought a DVX 100B. If you remember mini DV stuff.
Yeah.
And I started filming all the time, and any way I could make money, I
Wait,
tried.
what was the camera? What was the camera called? DVX one.
Yeah, Panasonic DVX 100B.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good camera. Like
Yeah.
I think it cost. It was like $2,300.
Okay.
For a
Wow.
17-year-old was
That's a huge amount of money. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So on your IG page, Micah, it says that, let me just get this right. You title yourself as photographer for fun
Yeah.
and cinematographer for work, but you majored in what I majored in. Of course, you went to the University of Cincinnati. I majored in marketing. Well, I double majored journalism and marketing, but you majored in marketing. How do you get from marketing to film work? I mean, I know you did you do underground before you went to college, right?
Yeah.
And so you loved it the whole way. Why did you choose marketing?
Yeah.
Was it a safety net of some sort?
I always loved. I mean, and to be fair, I never graduated. I dropped out.
Okay.
So I didn't get quite to where you were. But I always loved commercials. And so to me, it was like, oh, if I can learn more about marketing, it will help, how I shoot or make commercials. And early on, like and a lot of my thinking was I was already doing what I wanted to be doing, which was, shooting videos. I had a little business that I'd started where I shot events mostly. I mean, I shot anything I could, but it ended up being a lot of events. And I wanted to be an editor when I started, so I was editing those. And I do think that kind of starting point was actually super helpful for seeing what worked and what didn't. I got to, I would shoot stuff and then I would edit it, and then I could see, oh, this worked, this didn't, or these shots cut together better, or whatever, which I think, now I don't enjoy editing nearly as much. But I do appreciate that. I think if you know how to edit, it does help you be a better cinematographer. So.
And so your thought process was just you love commercials, and so you're going to market. Was that the thought?
Yeah, I loved commercials, and I mean, early on, you don't know exactly what you want to do, so I was hoping that maybe I could get a job at an agency or something, but that didn't last very long.
How did you survive University of Cincinnati, by the way? So I have one of my children went to Xavier, so I was around that campus a lot. It was crazy on that campus as compared to at least Xavier.
Well, I went to a branch campus.
Okay.
And then I went to a small school called Temple Baptist, and I played college basketball there for 1 year. But that, all that stuff was like, you're just kind of like taking the next step in front of you. But none of it was like, I loved, video stuff. So I think about that time, my buddy Ryan, there was a bunch of changes at the place where I went to the film camp, and he became the director there. Yeah. And so I started taking photos at some of the concerts because it was a concert venue and they had a TV show that they based out of there. And so the TV show kind of folded, and Ryan became the creative director there. And so I started taking photos, and Ryan had worked on X-Men 2 as a producer's assistant and had gone to film school, and he just loved film. And so I think he's a big reason why I got inspired. Like, his love for it inspired me to love it as well. And I got an internship there, and then I got a job there, and we made all kinds of content. We would make stuff, highlight videos for the bands. We had a huge battle of the bands, and so we would do promos for that. We did some music videos. We would do live music videos. We started like, there was an educational piece where high schoolers would come in, and we would teach them stuff, and then they would operate cameras and do the in-house live show and stuff like that. So I got to educate a little bit, but yeah, Ryan was awesome. And
go into that a little bit. I presume we're talking about Ryan Hartsock, former guest, two-time guest on this podcast.
Two-time guest.
He did. Yeah, we did an interview with him years ago, and he did a Mistake in the Making that was probably still to this day. So Mistakes in the Making is a series we do. If you guys don't know, you can check that out on Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. And he did one of the most original Mistakes in the Makings we still have to this day, where for 5 minutes you just have no idea how he's going to tie this into filmmaking, and then he does it beautifully at the end. So shout out to Ryan. What can you go into what he did as a mentor that helped you develop your sense of taste and your eye for what a good shot is and what a good shot isn't, and what's working and what's not?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think first and foremost, he loved film, and I think he had a high standard. And then, then he gave us a lot of autonomy to try stuff. And in that job, we had opportunities to, like, if something wasn't working, we could redo it. There wasn't you have one shot at it. So, so I feel like he gave us a lot of freedom. He'd be like, hey, this is kind of what we want to do. And then we had a lot of freedom to go out and make it. And we had a great team of people there. I had started a production company a while back with a buddy named Steven Sargent, and he was there. A guy named Kyle Eversall, and these guys were very good at their jobs, and they had a lot of passion too. And so, like, the team of us got to do a lot of fun stuff together. And I think we pushed each other to grow and learn, and it was super collaborative, and I think that was, for me, was something that was super fun, because earlier on it was just me, and so getting to, share brain space with, 3 or 4 other people in making stuff was a lot of fun. And I will say I knew pretty much nothing about lighting then. So I think some of the stuff I'll watch back and I'll be like, wow, we lucked into some good stuff here.
Yeah, sometimes you do have to get lucky, but I think the thing that sticks out to me, Micah, is this idea of he held you to a high standard.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of the doc series, The Last Dance, Michael Jordan doc series, where the whole thing is 10 episodes of people having to deal with Michael Jordan's standard of excellence, and all the varying machinations of that, whether they be, stressing you out, whether they be physical fights, altercations, arguments, things like this. But at the end of it, everybody was better.
Yeah.
Everybody was better for having been around someone who is so demanding. And I do think, from my viewpoint, just as an entrepreneur and as a founder and producer, I think you have to decide, are you going to try to make everybody love you, or are you going to have an actual principle, philosophy, point of view that is going to put you in a position where some people just aren't going to love you, but will work hard for you. Right. And, I had to come to that realization, because I'm a person who grew up kind of like with wanting people to love me, wanting people to like me no matter what, already feeling, in this community in the South, where it was like, okay, I'm a biracial kid, not exactly fitting in everywhere. Where do I go? Where do I fit in? My siblings sort of had the same thing, at least one of them for sure. And you have to overcome that, or you can't get to this place you want to get to, this professional benchmark we talk about. It's this idea of, if you do stuff for everybody and everybody likes it, then you've done something for no one. And it's not differentiated, and it's not going to be great, because you've given everybody permission to say, good job, we like you, instead of dealing with you professionally and critiquing you hard. Because you give it back to them hard, right? If you do that, then they'll critique you hard and make you better. So I think that really stands out in terms of what you said about Ryan. I do just want to ask one more question about that.
Yeah.
Just for the audience's sake. Well, what does it mean to hold you to a high standard as a cinematographer? Like, what would Ryan specifically, like, not accept?
I think, I don't know that it was like, there was like, oh, he's not going to accept this. I think it was like the expectation was already there that we were going to do the best work that we could do in that. And,
I see.
And I think that there was a lot of space and time for, if it wasn't good enough, we could go back and do it again, or put pieces of it again, or, And you've been around Ryan. He's just like, I have so much respect for him, and I would say he's one of my best friends, and a person that I enjoy hanging out with, because of his personality, like similar to like a Michael Jordan, that is going to push people to do to be the best that they can be. And I think that I feel like I've probably picked up a lot of that as well, in kind of what my expectations are for some of the people that we work with, or friends, or in other areas of your life too. Like you can really, I don't know, I think you should be striving to be a better person and to be a better version of yourself. So
I totally agree with that last piece for sure. Like this idea of just like, how can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday to those around me? And we don't always get there, right? Like, but if you're thinking, you think about it though, like, and it could be, you're so right. It could be anything. It could be, was I a good father today? Was I a good husband today? Did I go work out today? You told yourself you're going to go work out today. You didn't do it. So now you have to, if you don't care, then you don't even think about it. It just isn't even, it doesn't even cross your mind to get there, to get to that place. But it does sound like to me, his version of high standard, what allowed for that was the fact you guys were resource rich, and not just in funding, but also in time. The ability to give the time and have the time it takes to get those reps in to be great. So that's really important point I want to pull out for this audience. Another frequent collaborator of yours, even though you are in Cincinnati and this person isn't, is Motke Dapp. So I want to just quickly get your thoughts on Motke and what qualities does Motke have that makes you want to work with him so much, and what do you look for in a director based on all this time you spent with Motke? What are you looking for as a cinematographer when you meet a director, if it's not going to be Motke?
Yeah, I mean, I love Motke Dapp. He's another one of those guys, similar to Ryan, where it's just like, without them, I wouldn't be here. I'm super thankful for that. And when we first met, it was because of Ryan. We were shooting Motke was shooting a 48-hour film in Nashville, and some of his normal crew couldn't make it. Yeah. And so there was a mutual friend that Motke and Ryan had, and he was acting in the film. And so he's like, hey, I've got some friends that have a bunch of stuff, and they could maybe come do it. And so that's how Ryan came down. I came down, Steven and Kyle, and one more guy, Dan Mark. And we came down from Cincinnati and met Motke at his house like the night before. And he cooked up a crazy idea. We had an awesome location, and we shot a short film and edited everything in 48 hours. And he had a pretty big team around him already, but it was like we kind of came in and did the shooting aspect of it. And it was like Ryan and Motke hit it off, and I did too. And I think it was what the cool thing and the difference in a lot of the stuff that I had done before that is Motke's super prepared. Whenever I shoot with Motke, I love how prepared he is. He's thought through everything. He's got the wardrobe, the colors all dialed in, the actors. Like everything's kind of just dialed in, and that's one thing that I think makes him special. Is he loves it, and so he spends the time that it deserves ahead of time on it. And so for me, when I'm working with him or collaborating with him or doing pre-pro or whatever, like he's a lot of that's already done, and we can just like focus on how to make it cool. How do we make it cooler or more impactful, or bring the audience in this way or that way? And so we can focus on a lot of other details because of how prepared he is. And I think not every director is like that. But that's one thing that I love about Motke.
Yeah, it's super great feedback. I've found that to be true with him as well, especially like I think everybody's answer to do you love film, if they're in film, is I love film. But there are people who show it in their actions versus just their words. And he can get ramped up on a subject, on a critique of a film or an idea, and to the wrong person, like to the untrained eye, it's like, okay, he's combative about this. And I'm like, no, he loves this. What you're witnessing is passion, and you need to meet him there. And if you can't meet him there, you can't be one of his people. I mean, it's that simple. Speaking of meeting him there, what do you think it is about you that keeps him coming back to you?
Yeah, it's a good
working
question.
With you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's two things. I think one thing that we connect on is like filmmaking, and a lot of the roles in filmmaking they're very artistic. They have a ton of pieces of that, but I definitely view it as more of a craft. And so like when you think about it from a craft standpoint, there's work to be put in. Mm-hmm. There's you're developing into a craftsman. You're not just letting your artist's self, go places, but you're like actually developing. Similar to sports, similar to woodworking, or like stuff, like there's things to develop and there's skills to develop. And I think Motke has that big time, and I also have that. And so I think that's something that we connect on, is like we're both like we're developing our craft, and what's been fun is we've gotten to develop our craft together. The stuff that we make now compared to even another version, or Department of Thoughts and Intentions, which was the first one, you can see us get better together. And I think that's really cool. But I think that's
I've watched that progression myself. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking I think that's one thing that draws us together. And then when you're good friends with people and you have a long respect for them, you develop a shorthand. And so it's really easy. Like, he can describe what he wants, and almost always the first time what we put together, like the lighting team and I, like that's what he wants. Like it's very rare that we'll switch something up, and he'll add awesome things, or I'll add things, or a producer, you might add something, but it's rare to like, I don't know if we've ever had to like just scratch it and start over, just because in some sense there's just like a shared appreciation for similar things.
Yeah, I think you have to develop a circle of trust, so that when you have an idea, you trust the person's feedback to build upon the idea without changing who you are and what your idea is fundamentally. And I think, he's done a good job of finding those people to do that with. I know that you mentioned this at the very, very top of this conversation about sort of your love for commercial work, and that the love comes from the constraint, actually, like this limitation you have on time and shots, and you have to get it all in there. Can you just talk to this audience a little bit about the difference between a commercial shoot, and let's have a fair comparison. So instead of a feature, like an independent short film or any kind of short film, how do you approach those differently, a commercial shoot versus short film?
Yeah, I mean, and there's obviously different types of commercials, but for the most part, a commercial, let's say you have 30 seconds, and with an end tag of 4 seconds, you really have 26 seconds. So you have 26 seconds to tell the story that you want to tell. And in that you have that opportunity that also the shots need to be as cool as possible, because especially now everyone, is just skipping stuff, or is muted, or whatever. So you have to how can you pique their interest in the first 5 seconds, really? But what's fun about that is you take all that time and you're like, okay, here we are going to make each one of these shots as cool and as impactful as possible. So that's one thing I love about commercials is we might have a whole day, maybe sometimes 2 days to make 30-second commercial, or 2 30-second commercials. And so you have so much time to really craft the image, instead of, at least usually with a film, especially a short film, you have limited time. You're trying to shoot, 6, 8, 10, 12 pages in one day. And what's not always as important is how it looks, but it's way more important that it's cohesive. And so you do have time to make it look good, and you do have time to have usually to make it as best you can. But what's way more important is to make it cohesive, and for that narrative to maintain through the whole thing and kind of take your audience on a journey. But the challenge is we might be shooting a 9-minute piece, and you have 1 or 2 days or whatever. So you have so much less time to craft that. And I know on, bigger movies, you've got more time, but there's probably more problems. So it's what can you do? No matter where you're at, you're never going to have enough money, and you're never going to have enough time. So
there are always more cats to herd.
I think that's kind of the big difference, is that the shots are so much more important in a commercial, And in a film, the narrative is the most important thing. So, and shots go into that.
Yeah, it's a great summary. I am curious what your favorite project has been. If you had to pick one from both genres, like what's your favorite commercial and what's your favorite film you've done? Yeah.
Yeah. Commercials.
Which ones do you look to as like that one? I was on another level that when I did that.
Yeah. Litter Robot is a brand that Motke's working with, and we make some of the most fun stuff. They're a super fun brand, and I feel like it fits right into Motke's wheelhouse. And so, I mean, we have big crews on them, and we do a lot of cool stuff. So I'm really proud of how those look, and they're funny. And
is there one in particular?
That's a good question. One that we did that I really like that we shot in a big studio, and we had an orange set and a teal set.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like, it's like an infomercial, but the two hosts are like kind of combative. And so the way it's edited is it feels like they're trying to like steal time from each other. And that was one of my favorite ones, partly because it was, you go in a studio and it's a blank set. And so the production designer, art department did an amazing job, and the Genie team, and it was just a lot of fun. And so I love how it's written. It's back and forth. What's really cool is Motke and another guy at Little Robot, Sonny, they built this really cool style, and other companies, other brands are kind of starting to copy it. And so that's kind of fun to see, is like,
no.
Hey,
I mean, it's good. It's good, but then it's also like, oh no.
But we just keep pushing and growing and trying things. And it's like similar to what Old Spice, did, is like they came on and did, something very different. And then, lots of people copied them. And, there's pieces of Old Spice in what we're doing. And it's fun to like learn from those different things and try some stuff and make something that's very has a very specific brand. So that's been a lot of fun.
What went into getting the shot in another version of you, I think in Iceland, where the brother and sister Dixie character they're having a conversation, I think on a what looks to be an old airplane, or I think or somewhere near that. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it's a rock. But anyway, it's a giant shot. It's a beautiful shot. What went into getting that shot? And maybe we'll, on the video side, have editor Kate cut that shot in so people can get a sense of the beauty of it. But what went into getting that shot?
I think you're talking about two different shots. There is a shot where Diggsy,
I definitely am.
Diggsy's on the airplane and he's kind of exploring by himself. And then there's later on Diggsy and Daphne are on the beach.
And Daphne are on the but they're on a rock on the beach.
Yeah,
and it's a big shot. And then it's tight, and then it's I think it's
yeah. I mean, Iceland is beautiful anywhere you shoot, and we were there in May and it was pretty rainy.
That's what I was gonna say. Is it cloud covered and rainy though? Like
it was very rainy. But Motke and Ryan had some, good different places that they wanted to go, and we had a local guy there who works in the film industry there, and he was super helpful. So we just kind of went to different locations, and the goal was to, make it was kind of like that piece of it was kind of like a travel film, and so we were trying to, show cool places and show their relationship and what they were going through. So I remember. I wish I had a different perspective when we were there, because it was a lot of work, and I wish I had. There was a part of me that was like, man, this is a lot, and I wish that I had been able to step back and be like, this in this moment, this is amazing, and so I think I remember, we drove, and I would fall asleep holding the camera in the car, and then we would get out and we would, shoot at some beautiful place, and we'd get back in the car and drive, and I'd fall asleep. And because there's like 20 hours of light there,
Right.
and then we were dumping footage overnight and stuff. So it was a lot. But I think like we just we had a great overlook there, and you want to show the beauty of the place. And Motke and Ryan really did a great job of getting us to those locations, and Motke and putting those scenes and scenarios together. So for me,
is there anything you do though with lighting or with the camera to sort of deal with the fact that your subjects at times are so far away or seem so far away from the lens, or do you just rely on post to make it look?
I mean, no, we wanted to show the expanse of where they're at. So, I think it's probably a 24 mil. And we just backed up. Although we would have been a 25. So we're on some Zeiss ZEs. My lenses have evolved. But
those were the lenses. Because we need to talk about kits. We need to get into that here at the very near future. Because I want to let's pin that Zeiss lens talk, because we're gonna actually circle back around to that, and because that's kind of what I want to touch on is, it's lens choice, it's where you set the camera, how do you get the expanse. I think some of those things are the difference between good and great. Sometimes, and then the input you take from the director and producer, as you alluded to earlier. Is that your favorite genre to shoot though? Is kind of like sort of dramedy, comedy, sort of fun stuff? Or is there a genre you haven't shot that you're looking forward to shooting? Like what's your favorite to do, or one you desire to do next?
I mean, I love comedy, but not just straight comedy. Like, I think, I really enjoy Guy Ritchie films. I think that.
Are you watching The Gentleman right now?
I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited to.
Yeah. He does, whether you like the storyline or not, or like are into it, you have to admire like the chances he takes and like the style he brings, to everything he does. And it's to your point, it's kind of like he's an auteur. It's 100% him. Like you start watching, you're like, oh, this is Guy Ritchie. Like, it right away in the dialogue, in the way it's shot, some of the stuff in post he does. I think it's the way he wants his characters to live in the world it really stands out as well. Like they have a specific type of like dignity, even when they're dignity, even when they're criminals. The kind of thing, which is cool. So definitely check it out on Netflix, The Gentleman. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I like how
you love Guy Ritchie.
He just blends comedy, action, drama, and he just ends up making a fun movie.
Yes.
And like for the most part, I don't know, especially since 2020, I'm way more interested in watching fun movies than like sad or depressing movies. I don't know. I don't know if I got so depressed during 2020 that it was like, I don't want my movies to feel like where we're at. But I think so. I'm drawn to stuff like that. Like I really enjoy Edgar Wright, and I think that's another reason Motke loves Edgar Wright. And
another guy where it's like, right away. It's with these directors. And I would say Motke fits into this and you fit in this. It's this idea of, okay, this isn't how the world is, but it's how the world would be if I ran it.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that because you either hate it or you love it, but you don't get to sit on the sidelines. And that's what I like. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I just like, they have fun styles that they bring. So it's not just like, it's not just like, it doesn't feel like it's a exact world that we live in. It's a new world, and I enjoy that. And I like, I love Denis Villeneuve, and I love Spielberg, and I love those types of movies too. But I think in terms of like, if you're drawn to shooting something specifically, something more like Edgar Wright or Guy Ritchie is probably more what
I love those too. And I love, this is, I don't think it's controversial, but I love Aronofsky. I think he does a lot of world building too, but on the other end of that spectrum where there's something about, the tragic nature of human life that he focuses on. And you're right. You're not always in the mood to watch it. It's not like you go and watch Requiem for a Dream twice. like that's a movie you just need one time. You don't need to obsess about it. I'm sure some people do obsess about it and watch it over and over, maybe Selby fans, whatever. But the, it's not one of those things. I think Black Swan is like that. The Wrestler is its own unique version of heartbreaking. I've never seen such a polarized reaction to the movie Mother. There's such a polar reaction to that movie. Like I've never seen anything like it. So yeah, which one have you not seen? You said
I haven't seen many Aronofsky's films, but I would like to see The Wrestler.
Yeah, you shouldn't, because it was just going to make you sad, Micah.
Yeah, well,
we can't have sad, Micah.
I'm not sad super often. So.
Yeah, we got to keep you floating on high here. But yeah, the wrestler's just good, like all the way, like everything about it's good. Rachel Evan Wood she's a special talent. But I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So let's go back to the pin we put in the other question. You use Alexa Mini LF. Used Ari before. I'm thinking about like, what's that?
Like with that, like I think with cinematographers, there's a whole spectrum of how like are they technical to our artistic, and it's not like it's like a perfect scale, but like some cinematographers don't care about the gear, and some are just all about the gear.
This is true. This is what I want to get into, because we live in this sort of no film school newsletter world sometimes where they're selling you something new every month. You just got the red dragon, and now they're going to come out with the red, whatever the next thing is, with all these supplemental components you need to get just to make the damn camera work. And you can get caught up in it. You become sort of a minion in a way to sort of the market surge, and then of products in film. And then at the same time, every once in a while there is a breakthrough with a camera or with a particular price or with a capability where everybody sort of floods the market or runs to the market to go get those things. But for people who are just getting started and people who aren't in this world, they don't know. It's very difficult to tell the difference between hype and what's real. So I guess if you could create a cinematographer starter kit, what would be in it? Like what brands and models would be in your cinematographer starter kit? So I want to be a cinematographer now, and you're going to help me get started. What do I go out? I've got money. What do I go out and buy? Yeah.
Man, I think it's a fun time to be a cinematographer. Because cameras, basically all the cameras out there are so good. I think if you want a camera and you don't want to pay $1 bazillion like the big camera costs, hands down the camera would be the Sony FX, and they just shot the Creator on the Sony FX3. If you saw that.
I watched that. I watched the YouTube video on that, and they used the FX9 a little bit too, but a lot of it they used the 3.
Yeah, the 9 they used because they need a Genlock sync to shoot with the video wall.
Okay, explain that to the people. What did you just say?
I mean, I haven't shot on a video wall, to be fair, but video walls have a refresh rate, and you can sync that with the camera, so then you won't see it.
So you won't see the refresh rate.
The shutter will be at the same rate as the refresh rate, so you won't see any of that. So that's why they use the FX9, because the FX3 doesn't have a Genlock port. But everything else was, and it's just like, if there's, like, I'm shooting this little podcast on my FX3. I've got it stacked up here on my computer.
You look great.
Thanks.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, it's a small camera, but it looks like I have an Alexa Mini LF, and they're both full frame, and I can match them so easily in 98% of all scenarios. And then, if you go nitpicking color, specifically skin tone, the Alexa is better. But you could buy, 25 FX3s for one Mini LF or something like that.
Wow.
But they're just really, it's just a great camera. And it's one thing I've also noticed is if you're shooting more docu-style, or I shoot a lot for nonprofits, is like a big camera and an easy rig and all this stuff, it kind of is off-putting to people. And so they react differently to you being there. But a small camera, people are so used to phones and people just taking pictures all the time. It looks much more like that, and so you actually can get better footage oftentimes because your ability to be close and to get a more genuine reaction from people is far more important than the small difference in quality from a big camera to a small camera. So
that's great feedback.
If you want to make films or shoot pretty much anything and you have a little bit of money, I would buy the FX3.
What do they cost approximately? I mean, I know it's going to be different in $50 here or there, but in general, what are we talking about?
I think the body is like $3,900, and it's been out for a little bit now, so you might even be able to get it for less than that. And that includes a top handle with like XLR inputs and stuff, which is pretty great. So you still need media, maybe some extra batteries and a lens, but for $3,900, like you can get something that a huge $80 million movie just shot on. And
I know. I think that's so insane too. So if you haven't seen The Creator, it's pretty good. I liked it. Yeah. I'm a big fan of John David Washington. Yeah. Visually, there's just, it's otherworldly, but to your point, they shot that on this $4,000, $5,000 camera all in.
Yeah.
Maybe $6,000 all in. And they shot this giant movie on it. So, I think I know what camp you're in terms of like, is it like, should we get all technical here, or is it more about, you know what I mean? So like the camera's the camera, what you do with it, is totally different. It's almost like, not to make another basketball reference, but we're going to, it's like we look at these old videos of like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird playing in like Converse All-Stars, where there's like no support on the ankle and they're like literally made of canvas, some of them. And then, or Dr. J, like from back in the day, like, how did they play in those shoes? Well, it's what they were doing. It really isn't the shoes. Sorry, Morris Blackman, but it really isn't the shoes. It's what you do with it. Describe your go-to lighting setup. So again, to this audience, they're starting to be a cinematographer. They went out and bought the Sony you told them to buy. They've got the media, they got the lenses. Can you talk a little bit to like your lighting setup, and then maybe what lens you would get for that FX3?
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a lot of schools of thought, but if you had one light, most of the time, unless it's a big thing, I'm just lighting with one light and like using whatever, if we're on a daytime interior, using some windows or something to help out. And then the bigger the crew, like I work on all different size things. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's me and 50 people. So it's like, you have to, a lot of the same techniques are there. It's just like, how much can you do? But I love soft light. And so if you can, and you have one light, I would just buy a Fresnel with a softbox, and then put that like right here. The camera's here. You put that here or here, and give them some shape from one direction, but not too much. And you can shoot most of your stuff with something simple like that.
And for those just listening to the podcast and not seeing this on YouTube, Micah sort of put his hand right over his face as the camera, and then the light is sort of to the left or right of that camera.
Like a 2/3.
High and above, a 2/3. Yeah.
And so like for most, like if you're shooting an interview or something like that, like, I mean, let's be honest, like I shoot tons of interviews. That's a great way to light. And another thing is the bigger the source, the softer the source. And so the closer you can get that source to something, it makes it bigger, and that's going to be softer light. So I think like if I have several 5-foot softboxes, and that's a pretty big softbox, and you can get that pretty dang close to somebody. But even like if you have a 3-foot softbox, you can just get that close, dim it down so it's not too bright, and you can get that in a nice spot. If you have to shoot a wide shot, obviously the bigger the source, the better that's going to be for in terms of soft light. Or also like, using hard light and letting it bounce in and hit the floor and light the room more. That's also something I do a lot of. And, my whole goal with lighting is to make it look like it was naturally lit by the sun. And that it's not, obviously there's times where we're doing more stylized stuff, but like in terms of a narrative especially, I want it to just feel like there's no lights there. It's just like the windows and the practical bulbs and stuff that you see there have lit the space. So
it's almost like how we view technology, like the best technology is the technology you don't notice.
Yeah.
It's if you notice the cinematographer in a narrative story that's just supposed to have natural light, that's kind of a fail.
Yeah.
Like you want it to just look like you're there with the characters. I think is really smart way to look at it.
It's hard to do too. And like it's that, especially the wider the shots go, the harder it is. But I think that's my goal, is to make it feel like it's not lit. I know Roger Deakins is one of my favorite cinematographers, and he shot. This is where I'm going to need help. The movie with the guy in prison. They shot up in Ohio, and he escapes.
Oh, Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. So he shot Shawshank Redemption. That was one of the movies that he shot relatively early in coming over here, I think. Mm-hmm. Don't quote me on that, but relatively early. Like he'd been here for a couple of years, and he was at the ASC Clubhouse, and someone said something about, oh well, that wasn't a hard movie to shoot because it's all natural light, and he laughs about it because it's like almost no natural light because of the way that the prison wall, like the cells are set up, like it's in like deep shadow almost always. And so he had all these huge lights. I think they had to like source like everything in the Midwest to get the lights. And it looks like this, like just natural light. And that's one movie that I think is super impressive. And I think he enjoys that, that at that moment, another ASC cinematographer was like, oh, it's just natural light. And that's kind of like, that's
crazy. Yeah. It's crazy that comment came from a cinematographer too. Like just to lay yourself out there with naked ignorance.
Well, I don't know who it was.
With a comment that at best is pseudo intellectual and at worst is a hallucination of craft. I think that's really interesting.
That's kind of along those lines, I think one thing that's really impressive is how many amazing cinematographers there are. Like, obviously, you think of the movies that are coming out all visually look awesome, the way that people are doing it. But then you go down a step, commercials across the board. It's hard to find a bad looking commercial. And then you go, even down below that, and there's so many people that are doing really great work. And I think that's really cool. It's a little challenging because you're like, oh, well, how do I differentiate myself? But it's also really cool that there's a lot of people that have really fallen in love with this and really are making some awesome stuff. So.
Well, I wanted to touch on that. It's I had it down here just to talk about that because I want to know. I think it's true, so I'll just start with that. Yeah. But how is the definition of the role of cinematographer changing with this emergence of not just AI, but also post tools? There are so many post tools, and I'm lucky to have some editors in my life close to me. I to talk to them and geek out on this stuff. Yeah. And the amount of things you can do once you get the image into your software is remarkable. And so sometimes I wonder is what me and you were seeing in terms of the quality of the shot and the commercial, the movie, is that the craft of the masters like Roger Deakins, or is that the craft of great post and great editors, and even more to the point I'm trying to make, great software? How is it changing the definition of your role in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would know the ins and outs of every piece of this, but I know that there's guys like, I don't think Deakins is shooting very close to what you're seeing in the theater.
Okay.
They have a colorist, they're touching stuff up and making stuff better, but it's not like a full AI relight or something. But I have seen software that you can completely relight an entire scene with AI, what AI tools. It still needs someone doing it. You can't just like type it in and tell it, but
yeah,
it's amazing. Like making hard light slashes and like brightening up things, and camera quality is so high, and it's continuing to grow where all that information will be there, and AI tools are just going to do that. So that aspect of things is I love AI tools. I don't love like the idea of generative AI, and I don't feel super qualified to talk too much about it, but like it's definitely a concern, especially since it's learning. All it's doing is learning from human created stuff, basically plagiarizing it and making it. And there's an Under Armour commercial that I don't know if you've seen that was basically made with AI, big time commercial director. And there's like a Instagram post, and it's like all the big of the big are commenting on it and talking about it. It's been really interesting to see like different people's takes on like it, but it's pretty concerning because they trained AI on other Under Armour commercials shot by other people, and then used some of that footage to like make a whole new commercial. And it kind of makes sense, but
it is. And it's interesting and concerning, right? Like I have two thoughts on that. So one is, our lawyer has talked to us about this a lot, about sort of like the IP cases that can be won or lost and why, and just guiding us, giving us counsel. And one of the things he always refers back to is a case that was put in court against EA Sports. And EA Sports, if for those who don't know, they make sports games for gaming systems. Some of the most popular ones are like Madden and NBA 2K and things like that. And this NBA player had a tattoo on his arm. A lot of NBA players have tattoos. And those tattoos ended up in the game, and the tattoo artist sued and won.
Wow.
Because the game is making money off, I guess, a derivative version of his original art. So if that can be won, to me, it's impossible. There's art like for AI to win out on this, because in those tech companies that are making it, because the courts have already set a precedent in intellectual property cases where it's like, as long as you can prove that the AI was being trained.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're totally transparent about this. They're like, we trained it on other Under Armour stuff. And so if Under Armour had worked for hire for those cinematographers and for those directors, then they might not have a case,
right?
Those directors, cinematographers, but if those directors and cinematographers can prove that they use a certain standard of like a certain toolkit every time, so whether they're shooting for Under Armour or Nike, it looks the same and it's identifiable as their work, then I think they do have a case. Because now this AI has learned how to shoot the way I would shoot and color the way I would color and do setups the way I would do it. So it'll be interesting to see.
I know that some production companies and agencies are trying to like rework like those agreements so that some of this stuff can't happen. Because if it does, eventually there will be that type of work will go away. Because ultimately it's all about money, and it is way cheaper to just type things into a computer. even if it costs $50,000, it's, that's way cheaper than $2 million commercial.
Right. And I'm trying to popularize this phrase prompt maker instead of filmmaker, because that would be my second thought. My second thought is that it's happened in music, probably most famously, but it's happened in other industries too, where what technology does is it democratizes something that took a person their entire life to become a master at, right? Mm-hmm. You could make the case for chess being like that, online chess. You could make the case for music. When someone older says the music just isn't the same today, the first instinct you have is, okay, Clint Eastwood, right? Get off my lawn kind of thing. Every generation says that. But if on deeper examination, the reason why the music might not feel as warm or as good or soulful or even as craft-like is because you no longer need to, how many people on the radio know how to play any instrument? There are entire genres where there are no musicians in the genre. And that's due to technology, the democratization of a skill set. And so when everybody can be a cinematographer and everybody can produce, an incredible looking Super Bowl ad or BMW commercial or whatever, then I think you have every right to have some, not just angst, but you can be somewhat bitter because you spent your real life learning how to do the things that this technology is just going to sort of hand over to just everybody that wants to do it. And what would be the differentiator then? It feels like the differentiator is your ability to tell a story, in that, now ads are less. And so ad work might change forever, to your point. And the only way to really stand out is to be a storyteller and tell that sort of narrative story over time that would be very difficult for somebody to do, even if they had the tools. Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of like every person I grew up with could make a beat because of the democratization of music and the digital workstation. They all could make beats for the most part. And if you couldn't make your beat on time, then you were lost anyway. And there were people who, even with the computer, couldn't put the drums on time. It would be amazing. And then what you found out, and this is a bit of a diatribe now, what you found out was that the difference was, okay, this person has something to say, this person didn't. Mm-hmm. This person has nothing rolling around up there in their noggin, and this person has a lot rolling around in their noggin. And maybe film will be the same. You've been generous with your time, Micah. This has been awesome. Can I hit you with some speed round questions, some rapid fire, if you will?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions, but you don't have to answer fast. So I just always want to preface that. But this is just a series of questions. Okay. 1, for anyone in film, cinematography, or just needing inspiration, what books do you recommend?
Man, that's a good question. I currently haven't read a whole lot recently. I know the magazine American Cinematographer has been super helpful for me.
Okay.
And some of it is pretty deep. So you might not always know all the lighting terms or what units they're talking about or stuff, but I've learned so much from that magazine series, and I think it's awesome. They'll even give you breakdowns and stuff. So I think if you love film and you want to learn more, that's the number one thing I would recommend.
Love it. Magazine American Cinematographer. Go out and get it, per Micah Simms. What are the best pieces of advice you've received in your career?
I heard something recently on the Deakins podcast that I think, which I would also recommend, is the Roger Deakins podcast.
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah. That I've learned so much on there, but there was a cinematographer was talking, and I'll think of his name here in a little bit. But he was talking about how, if if you've been a cinematographer or if you've worked on set, there's a pressure on you. Mm-hmm. The pressure to make the day is intense. Yeah. And you have a shot list and you have this piece and you know you have limited time. And so there's this pressure. And I only know how I handle it. I'm sure there's other cinematographers that handle it differently, whether they're like, you know what, we're just going to go 2 hours late, or we're going to sacrifice here or there. And there's always going to be sacrifices for different things. But the cinematographer, it was Adam Arkapaw, and he said, I think he had gotten this advice too, and it was do what the best you can to make it special. And I think like with that pressure to make the day, to get all the shots, you're like, I know for sure that we have to sacrifice how something looks for time on a regular basis, but like do your best to find some way to make it special. And I think that if you work a lot or you kind of get into the grind on things, that was something that really meant a lot to me. And I was like, you know what, that's really true. Like this, I feel so blessed to do this job. I love that. I love cinematography. I love lighting people. I love lighting spaces. Like I love how different light hits different people's faces and their skin tone, and just different skin absorbs light differently. And I love the intricacies of that. And so like you have an opportunity in every shoot, in every set that you're on, to make it special. And I would say go after that opportunity.
There was an A24 film that came out 2 years ago, I want to say. Horror film, psychological thriller mostly, but the cast was almost 100% Black folks, African Americans. And the way that thing was lit was unbelievable. I still haven't seen anything like it. And I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. It had critical acclaim, but I don't think it killed in the box office. If I can figure it out, I'll say it or put it in the show notes. But it was kind of a festival darling kind of movie. But really, 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 really well shot. I just couldn't believe how well it was shot and lit.
That's cool.
What are the biggest mistakes you see filmmakers or cinematographers make? And if there's one specific and you know how to avoid it, how would you avoid it? If I can just add that.
I think, a little thing, whether this isn't less about maybe in film, but just in shooting in general, that I always pick up on right away. And, you also like, there's tools and there's rules and there's, reasons to break them. So it's like, not everything is like, oh, this needs to be just like this. But in general, there's something called shooting the long side of the lens. And that is like, you see this light, I have this light here. And if I'm facing this way, the light's hitting me flat. So that doesn't look nearly as good as if I'm facing this way. So you would shoot your camera on the shadowed side. And so you get this like, it's just like you look better, people look better. And so like if I'm watching something and an interview pops up and it's lit on, like the camera's on the wrong side, like that's something that I would say is a very common mistake for people starting out. I've made it plenty of times. And then in film, it's a lot harder because there's plenty of scenarios where you can't shoot on the right side. And so then it's like, how do you make it still look good? And that would be, to me, it would be softening up the light big time on that side and making it work. But that's probably one thing that a lot of people make the mistake of, is shooting on the wrong side. And 180-degree rule, people break that all the time.
And okay, so two things out of that. One, for the people just listening, Micah was basically showing profile. He was turning to the left and turning to the right, where you can only see the profile of his face, when he was describing shooting the long side of the lens, and shooting on the right side, the correct side, I should say, of the person's profile is really, really important. And if you can't do that, soften up the light quite a bit is what he's saying. Second of all, can you describe to the audience the 180 rule?
Yeah, so the 180 rule, I think picture two people in a conversation, they're facing each other.
Mm-hmm.
The wide shot is a 2-shot. So you have person 1 on the left and person 2 on the right. When you go in for your coverage, imagine there's a circle,
mm-hmm.
and you're cutting that in half, and you're always staying on the same side of where the wide shot was shot from.
Okay.
Now you can flip up. There's reasons that you can break that or make it work. But in general, just for simplicity's sake, when you go in for your close-up, the person who's on the right side should stay on the right side of frame. The person who's on the left side should stay on the left side of frame. So if you're shooting in over the shoulder, they're still going to be on the right side. Other person's going to be on the left. And in a scenario like that, it's pretty easy. Where it gets hard is like the hardest way to do this is in a door frame. So someone answers the door, and instead, like, you're not shooting shot, reverse shot, you're shooting overs. But
Yep.
then, like, where they are, it's like surprisingly hard to make it look right and still shoot them in the correct side. And what happens is, like, subconsciously, the audience, it just works. Like, you're like, oh, they're the right, they're the left, and then you know where everybody is. And as soon as it's off, you're like, whoa. And for whatever reason, like, TV shows break it all the time. I don't know if they're shooting fast and like sometimes it takes you out of it and sometimes it doesn't. I think it kind of depends on, like, there's definitely reasons you can break it and how to break it, like going to a close up, or you could still keep them on the right side, but you cross that 180 line and you have different foreground, or you went to a different wide shot and then that switches. Like, so there's like lots of reasons and ways to switch it, but in general, for a simple scene, it surprises me how often it gets broken.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about being taken out of the story by the series of shots, and the lay sort of viewer doesn't really know why they got taken out of it, but when they're out, and it's just your brain is trying to connect these things in real time and make sense of the world you've created for them. And so that's sort of the magic of shooting, the way you shoot, and using these rules like the 180 rule to create that continuity, so the brain doesn't have to work to try to figure out the world you're creating for them.
Yeah.
So really, really cool and great point. I appreciate you going deep on that. It's exactly what we are all about.
My rapid fire answers are not rapid fire.
No, it's like I said, it doesn't have to be. If you could be introduced to one person in film, who would it be and why?
Oh man. I mean, the two people that I love the most in film would be Roger Deakins and Greg Fraser.
Okay.
I would love to meet either of them. Probably Greg Fraser more so at this point, because I listened to Roger Deakins talk so much on his podcast. But I also, Greg Fraser seems like very, like, just a fun person to hang out with. Like, he's very energetic and passionate and positive. So, yeah.
Like, you'd want to have a beer with Greg Fraser.
Yeah, I would love that. I think both those guys, those are my two favorite cinematographers, and I think both of them do amazing work. But I think what Greg Fraser's doing right now, like, he's just doing little things better than anyone else and making it cooler, and just doing all kinds of cool stuff. So I would love to just, like, spend time with him. One thing that was cool that people might be interested in is when I was, I don't know, just like early 20s, I've gone to a couple of different workshops where I've learned a ton, but one of them that I went to was the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers, as a masterclass, a 5-day masterclass. And so you go to the clubhouse in LA and you there's like 10 ASC cinematographers there. Yeah. And like just getting to spend time with them and like talk to them was really impactful for me. And so I think, if I could hang out there with Greg Fraser one day, that would be pretty cool.
Can you give one or two things Greg's worked on for the audience? So
yeah.
You can go see some of his work.
He shot Dune 2. He prepped the creator, and then another DP shot it and did an awesome job. And then Oren Soffer shot the majority of the creator. And then he shot the Batman. He shot, like, going back, he shot Lion.
That's a great movie.
Which is like such a different movie and beautiful, like just unreal. So yeah, he's doing some great work.
I'd written a
What else?
screenplay that ended up being close to the storyline of Lion, so I really like
Oh
the
yeah,
movie a lot. Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Anyway, I'll say this about Dune 2. Sorry. People have to stop talking about it, man. Like people have to stop telling me how great it is, because then it gets in that place. So I have this razor, this razor, which is in this context is like a rule, right?
Okay.
And so the rule is the people enjoy being surprised by something they don't know is great more than being told something is great and then seeing it. Or hearing it. And the example I used is when I was in high school, we'd have a talent show, and there was like this guy named Darcy, and Darcy was like the resident artist in our school. He was the guy everybody knew was the bomb.com and happened to be a nice guy as well. So he was like a triple threat guy. And he got up and he sang Stevie Wonder's Ma Cherie Amour, I think, or something like he sang a Stevie Wonder classic, and it was brilliant and it was great. But we already knew he was great.
Yeah.
Right. Then his buddy Mweba Mustafa, who by the way is a fine actor here in the Southeast region, he's in a lot of stuff here, and friend of mine. We go way back. He gets up and sings. We don't know that about him. And he sings a song. I can't remember what he's saying, but people were floored because here's this guy we see in the hallway every day, and it turns out he has this secret superpower, right?
Yeah.
So I think he won the talent show. I can't remember if he won. But if you're hearing this, let us know if you actually won the talent show. I think he won, and that developed the razor for me, which is okay. People were more impressed by the secret talent they didn't know this person had than the understood greatness of.
Yeah.
Right. So it's why on showcases when the 8-year-old gets up there and sings like on America's Got Talent or something, like we're more impressed with that than like the 25-year-old powerhouse singer, right? Or whatever is happening. I just don't know why we're like that, but I think we're like that. And what's happening with Dune 2 is everybody keeps telling me it's great. And I'll be honest, I was just okay on Dune 1 or the first Dune, because I just don't buy Timothée Chalamet. Like when he's wafy. So I love Timothée Chalamet. I think he's incredible. Incredible. But he can't act his way out of being that skinny. Like when he beat up that black dude at the end, man, I was like, come on now. That dude would have broke you in half in real life. I don't buy it. My disbelief is no longer suspended.
I will say this about Dune 2. I think the acting
that dude was swole.
is phenomenal.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Now, I like Dune 1 better myself.
You did? I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anybody say that.
I know. I don't think anyone else feels that. But I like that there's a lot more diversity in location in the first one. I love that we're on, the original planet, and it's like rainy and green, and then we come over to like whatever the planet that the desert is, and and we're inside, and they have all the long like rectangular window things with bounce light, and so there's a lot more of that. Like in Dune 2, we're in the desert for like 80% of the movie.
Okay,
and it looks amazing, but we're still in the desert for 80% of the movie.
Okay.
And there is some, there's other cool places, but like the first one has a much more diverse location and like I don't know, style of locations that I really enjoy.
All right, I'm gonna go watch it. Shout out to my buddy Tayo that wants me to watch this really bad. He texts me once a week to find out if I've actually watched it. Like I am gonna watch it. I promise. I will watch it. I do want to rewatch Dune 1 or the first Dune. I want to rewatch it before I watch Dune 2. It's not a small commitment. It's a very long movie. Right. I just keep thinking, like, what would that movie be like if Adam Driver were cast in it instead? Like someone who's like, we would view him as someone who.
I think if you watch Dune 2, you'll like Timothée Chalamet even better.
And I don't hate I really like Timothy Chalamet.
Zendaya is phenomenal, like incredible actor. I just feel like all the acting in the second one is incredible.
Okay. I'm all in on her as well. And I do think it'd be weird if her and Adam Driver were. So yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense too. So I'm all good with that. Okay. Okay. Dune 2 coming up soon. Dune 1 more liked by Micah. Check. Okay. What are the first three? Okay. Let me put you in the scenario. Again, same scenario, but instead of gear, same scenario as before, where I'm the cinematographer, you're the master, right? You're like Mr. Miyagi. I'm the Karate Kid.
I'm working on
it. And you've already taught me like what to buy. I know to get the Sony FX. Like I know to do it. I don't know if I know what lens to get yet, but I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so you can drop that in after I say this setup, what lens to get. But now I want to know, like, sort of from a behavioral craft standpoint, what to do. So you got to get me ready to be a cinematographer. What are the first three things you teach me? And then share a lens recommendation.
So you have experience? Do you have experience yet, or you just
no experience? I just went shopping. All I've done so far is I've gone shopping for the stuff you told me to buy.
Man, I think obviously, like, you can shoot like locations. Like, I like to go around Cincinnati or Nashville or wherever and shoot photographs of those locations. So, I would recommend shooting photographs. Okay. I would shoot photographs as much as you possibly can, and think about what you like and what you don't like about them. And then I would also photograph as many people as possible. Okay. And notice how, different light hits them. Obviously the time of the day to shoot would be morning or evening. You want the sun a little lower in the horizon. If there's a little thin layer of clouds, that's really nice too. But not too much cloud. Then everything kind of gets flat. So I think you can learn a ton from photographing on how light works, and just notice things. Like, you're driving in the car in the morning and the sun's coming through in a really unique way and it's really pretty. And you're like, oh man, like, how could I recreate that on set? Or, I wonder what would happen if I photographed that. And, photograph it when the light's flat and see how people look. Photograph it when people are backlit. Think about getting a white poster board and bringing a bounce in and using that. I think, like, just experiment. I think it would be hard to, like, if you're just going to go make your first thing, and you don't really know, it's just like, it's going to be an experiment. And I would try different things and start figuring out what you like. I'd watch lots of movies as well.
Okay. I'm online at B&H Photo. What lens should I go buy for my FX3?
I mean, if you have an FX3, it's full frame. I would get a 50 millimeter. You could get a 35. Like, if I'm shooting photographs, I'll shoot on a 35 almost always. If I'm shooting full frame video, I'm on a 35 a lot and I'm on a 50 a lot. Okay. So I think the prime lenses mean that they don't zoom, and most of the stuff that I shoot is on primes. I have several zooms, and for docu-style stuff, I'd rather be on a zoom. But a prime is nice because it forces you to be more intentional with where the camera is. Another good piece of advice, which I maybe should have added in earlier, but is like, and I think I learned this from Deacons, but it's like, put the camera where you want the audience to experience the thing from. So, like, if you want them to be, like, kind of observant and back, move the camera back away. If you want them to be in the conversation, shoot on a wider lens and be really close. So it's like, camera proximity is really important to how you're setting up your scenes.
And sometimes the camera becomes the audience. And I love those shots too, where the whole intent is we're now the camera and we're watching you. We're like above you, or we're sort of viewing from our POV. It's I love those kind of shots as well, and just how you can manipulate the viewer with the camera because you're their eye into the world. Like I really geek out on that. I think all those ideas about there's so many different cool ways to take the same subject and make it look and feel so emotionally different depending on where you place the camera. So let me just go down the list for the audience again. So first three things Micah Simms is going to teach you before you shoot your first thing. 1, go out, shoot some photos. 2, go out and shoot some people, different skin tones, different types of day, different settings. Go shoot people. And then number 3, run a bunch of experiments. Experiment with shots, video, locations, and watch a ton of movies. So those are the first 3 things you should do once you shop for your 50 millimeter lens, 35 millimeter prime lens, and your FX3. And all your soft lights and your Fresnel. So once you have all,
you might want to have a job to pay for all this.
No, don't worry. I'm making $25 an hour as a barista at Starbucks right now, so it's all good.
Thinking about that, though, too, is another great thing that I learned is what you do in your off time says more about you than what you do in your on time. So if you have a job and that's your on time, but you want to be a filmmaker, you want to be a cinematographer, whatever you want to do, like don't bemoan the fact that you are in this job. Like take that off time and make the job and opportunities that you want. And that's going to be that's the only way it really works, is that like you have to put in work and it's not going to just happen. Like it's just really not. Like you have to use that off time to become the person that you want to be.
That's really well said. And look, to that point, we're all working towards a thing. We all want to make the best thing we can make. We all want to tell a story of our lives through film and through the lens and whatever sort of creative mediums speak to us. And we want to do it at the highest level and get, like we talked about earlier, 1% better every day. But what comes with that, to your point, is the need for funding, the need for resources. And if you're going to get those resources at the level in which you might need them to tell the type of story you want to tell, you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of rejection. This business is very competitive. You can meet some real a-holes. You can meet people who do not have your best intention at heart. You can meet people who are one way on Monday, and then when they get what they want, they're totally different on Friday. So I guess my question to you, Micah, is, have you ever been, in a dark place in this industry? And if so, what tools or methods do you use to get yourself back into that place of happiness that you like to stay in?
Yeah. I think 2020 was a really impactful year for me. 'Cause leading up into that, I was working a lot, and I have a family, and kids, and there's a lot of pressure to take care of, be a provider. And so I think like I was working a lot. It's pretty easy to be like, oh, just go from job to job and make money and do a good job, but not find that special thing that we talked about earlier. And I think 2020 hit and I couldn't work. There was zero work for at least 3 months. And when something that you love gets taken away, when it comes back, there's a whole new perspective. And I feel like now I have a new perspective. And that perspective is that every job is an honor to have, and every job deserves your best. And if you're going to say yes to a job, do it to the best of your ability. And so I think that's kind of the thing that has losing that job and losing the ability to work for several months and being like, oh, this is something that's more than just like a job. It's something I just love to do. And then when it came back, I feel like I just had a different perspective. And I feel really thankful to the Lord. I feel like he's blessed my journey so much in giving me opportunities. And also like I think as a cinematographer or when you're creating stuff, it's really easy. Like if people don't like it, you like get really down. And like that is still, that's still a challenge, but I feel like, finding a lot more of my worth in the Lord, I think that helps, keep me positive and not be quite as concerned about, so-and-so didn't like this or whatever. And like you talked about earlier, like you can't do stuff for other people. Like, you really should be working, like obviously for the director, but like you're making the best stuff you can make.
Yeah.
And it's what people say, but yeah, do the best job you can. And you should sleep pretty well at night.
So. Oh, thank you for that, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's great advice. I mean, be grateful for the work you do get. The fact that we always say that to our team here, which is like, don't forget that you get to do this. And, I like to say it on set too. Like, don't forget that you get to make a movie or we get to do this. Like it's a dream just to be doing this sort of practically as an actual job. And then doubling down on your faith, whether that be, I know for you, you've got a Christian background, but whatever your faith is that keeps you strong and grounded and gives you that foundation underneath, like lean on that. I had a curiosity, just this is almost an aside, but is there, based on your faith, I know you have, your wife and your kids and you guys all sort of have that background in Christianity. Is there something you won't shoot, that you refuse to shoot? And I'm not talking about, will you shoot snuff films and pornography? Of course, that's off the table. I'm saying within the realm of narrative storytelling, do you have a line where you're like, I won't shoot that even though the story needs it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that line had to be drawn early on, because once you're face to face with the money or the opportunity, it's a lot harder to say no. But there's, I'll run scripts by my wife.
Shout out to Elizabeth.
Yeah, shout out to Elizabeth. And just be like, hey, would you be comfortable with this? Or, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this. Do you think, should we say no to this or whatever? And sexuality and nudity on screen, like there's more and more of that in shows. So I definitely read the scripts pretty intentionally, and I've had to say no to some things just because I wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm not comfortable watching it with my wife. Like I'm not going to shoot it, and so that's kind of it's a hard line, but for the most part it hasn't come up a whole lot. But that's kind of where I stand, and I'm trying to stay there. And I made that decision a long time ago too, so I think kind of staying with your convictions on that is a good thing. And I really do think that with the streamers and getting away from like TV and theaters, like the line for what is an R-rated movie now is way worse than it was 20 years ago. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of these R-rated movies are really X-rated movies. And I really don't think that it's artistic. I don't think it brings the story forward, and I don't think it's helpful for most people or especially marriages. And I think that's a shame. I think that a lot of this content could be cut out and you'd still have maybe even a better movie or show.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that and sort of having the courage to stand on your beliefs on the record. I really respect that. I was going to show my youngest daughter Stand By Me the other day, and then I was shocked to see that it was rated R. So I was like, oh, well, hold on. We have to watch this again to see, like, my daughter's almost 15. She could kind of, it's like, seems like a good age to watch Stand By Me. I feel like I watched it before I was 15. And so what were my parents doing? But anyway, but then you come to find out, okay, to your point about how the ratings were, like, okay, they have curse words, like some like, combination word curse words or thing, like some compound curse words, but that got them R rating back then. And now that feels like that would be PG-13 now and not R rated. And so I think you're absolutely right. And, where I will just give you my stance on it. I think when a nudity or sex scene is required to tell the story, then it comes down to how are you going to shoot it.
Right.
And if you
there's tasteful ways to do it.
Yes.
And then there's, non-tasteful ways to do it.
Right. And so if you can do it tastefully so that, it makes sense, I think that works. Like, there was that Richard Gere movie from back in the day. I mean, how do you avoid the lovemaking sex scenes in that movie when the whole movie is about a tryst that goes wrong and the perils of affairs? You can't tell that story without showing bedroom scenes. You just can't. You can't skip that, as you put earlier. And so I think then it becomes, how do you shoot it? And to that movie's credit, I don't know why I'm forgetting the name of this movie. I think it might have been Unfaithful or something like that. They did shoot it in a very, very adult and tasteful way. And I mean adult in the sense of it was a mature looking shot and lighting, and it wasn't there to surprise you or shock you with sort of, how the sex is happening or how the lovemaking is sort of going down. So very, very good stuff. Man, this has been a blast. I have to tell you, I had a really great time getting educated from you. And I will leave you with this. I'm curious, what does success look like to Micah Simms? What does it mean for you to make it?
Yeah, I think success is kind of evolving. I think for a long time, I wanted, my goal was to have, ASC after my name.
Okay.
And I think that is, I would still obviously love that, but I think the chances of that are going down quickly. But I feel definitely earlier in my career, I felt like this need to like do bigger and bigger work and to grow like where I was working and how I was working and who I was working with. And I don't feel that anymore. Like I get a lot of contentment from my family. We just adopted a kiddo, so we have a fourth kiddo now.
Wow.
And I just I love being with them. I learned so much from them, and I love being a dad. And so I love cinematography. I love working, and I love being a dad and making that all work together. And I think for really, movies are not something that can really do that right now. Unless it was like a shorter run or my family could be with me or something. So, hopefully in the future I'll get to shoot more movies, as my kids get older. But I just am content. I'm super content with the people I get to work with. I love, people like Motke, like Ryan, another buddy, Isaac Stambo, and Rudy, and David Perry. There's so many I'm not even naming. There's just so many good guys out there. And a girl named Ashley Mello that's just doing great work. And these people I just love working with them. I love the opportunities I get. And I feel like sometimes, we get the opportunity to make some really high level stuff. And I think my idea of what success is is doing the best I can at the opportunities that I have with cinematography. It's being the best dad I can and blending those two things together. And that's what success is for me. And right now I feel super thankful that it's working out really well. So yeah, very thankful.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I love that. And shout out to David Perry, friend of the podcast, former guest, and shout out to adoption. I am the product of adoption. I'm not adopted myself, but my father was. And I would literally not be sitting here talking to you today because my father was adopted from Germany. And so I just would not even be here without adoption. So I love adoption. I'm glad you're doing that. And we're going to get those. We're going to get that acronym. We're going to make that happen. You're going to get that ASC. You certainly deserve it. In the meantime, though, can you tell everybody watching and listening where they can find you on social media, where they can find you on the internet, see some of your work, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. My kind of work account is just my name, Micah Simms. And then I have a photo account that's just called Micah's Camera. And that's mostly just photos of places I've been or my kids or other people. And then I have a website that's just micahsims.com. I will say I'm terrible about updating everything. So there's not going to be tons of stuff on there, but I mean, I really also have a heart to like, teach people and educate people and train people. So if you have questions or there's things that you want to know about or something, definitely drop me a message and I'll do my best to like respond and help out. And
can they email you or should they DM you? How should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, email's great. micahsims at gmail.com. And I'm here. Like I've had so many people help me get me to this place. Just believe in me, give me opportunities. Like I think of like another version of you. Like I was 26 years old. And when we shot the first part, I was younger than that. And I just Motke believed in me and Motke gave me that opportunity, and Ryan and you. Yep. I'm sure there was also like, you're like, who's this guy? Like, I don't know.
Right.
There's way more experienced people and I was given that opportunity and I'm so thankful for that. So thank you. And thanks to those other guys.
My pleasure. Yeah, it seems to have worked out. And so all good. We'll do some more. And to your point about being bad about updating accounts, this is a little bit inside baseball, but we found this old Flickr account that you had, and then the research was like, there's like a comment in the research, he hasn't posted in 7 years. Clearly, he's done with Flickr. But it's still, I
didn't even know I had a Flickr account.
You do, and it's still up there, and there's a lot of cool stuff on your Flickr page, like a lot of old school Micah comments added there in photography. So I don't know if anybody wants to go search up Flickr.
Please don't. One thing I did do that a long time ago, which was super helpful, is just take a photo a day and post it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that will help people grow and just be like intentional with, making stuff.
Oh man, I think that's so good because it's like, yeah, you're intentional about it. You're actually experimenting, you're doing stuff, but then you're also facing the gauntlet of your of sort of public scrutiny, and you're facing the fear yourself. My dad, when I was younger, did this experiment on me in that same similar way, a little bit different. I remember I was terrified of I couldn't like find matching socks. This is a true story. It's so stupid, but I was like, I'm not going to school. F it. I'm not going to school. My socks don't match. And, I just like can't afford to be bullied today. Like I can't afford to like be like the subject of everybody's ire. And he, of course, as dads do, made me go, and I'm wearing the mismatched socks. He goes, I bet you that no one is going to notice it. You think you're the center of the universe, and I'm here to tell you that you're not. And sure enough, not one person saw that my socks didn't match all day. And to this day, he uses these sort of techniques to calm me down. Like I'll start to get sort of existentially angsty sometimes, and about just like time running out. And he'll be like, just remember, you're one person out of 8 billion on a rock that's hurling around the sun in one galaxy of billions. And it just puts it all. Some people hate that. I've told people that before. They go, "Oh, thanks for making me feel meaningless, Chris." And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is, don't over dramatize this. You're on the journey. So many before you and so many after you will take, and we don't even have any of it figured out. The universe appears to be expanding. This is like a story that just came out like a week ago, but it's not expanding equally. And it's baffling people. It's expanding faster in some areas than other areas of the universe, which isn't supposed to jive with physics.
Yeah.
So we don't know anything. We just don't know anything. From the moment you were born, you are told that you have a conscious and a self-conscious, and nobody can find it on an X-ray. Nobody can find it on an MRI. So, just go out, be intentional, upload a photo a day, and do your thing, and everything will be all right. That being said, let's talk about where you can find the Make It podcast. Obviously, if you're listening or watching this, you already know where to find it. But if you want to support some more, do leave a review. They really, really do help. And of course, you can leave those reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can subscribe on our YouTube page just by searching for the Make It podcast. What you may not know is we are uploading full episodes to X, which was formerly Twitter. So you can find that at _Make It podcast. We are also uploading full episodes to Facebook, and you can find that on just by searching for the Make It podcast on Facebook. And we are uploading full episodes to that platform as well. We will just keep expanding and keep doing our thing. So just keep an eye on that. If you want to further support us outside of the podcast, one really great way to do it is to subscribe to our bi-weekly newsletter, Indie Insights. Indie Insights is kind of amazing because it's a passion project for me and the team, Nick and I and the team, I should say. We all work on it together to bring you the most esoteric, sort of not conventional stuff you'll find in film, insider stuff like discount codes and tools, resources, software from that come from behind the wall, if you will, of filmmaking and of the industry. And by the way, it costs nothing. So just put your email in there, and we're not going to spam you or do any of that crazy stuff. We're just going to send you this goodness every 2 weeks. So Indie Insights, subscribe. You can do that at bonsai.film. So bonsai.film.com. So bonsai.film/subscribe, and you'll get the next newsletter on Friday, guaranteed that you will love it. New thing is on bonsai.film, our store is open. So you can go and shop for cool, Make It apparel, bonsai apparel. Very, very good stuff there. We curated this. We spent 2 years curating the right partners and the right apparel so that it wasn't just a t-shirt or a hoodie that gets stuffed in a drawer that you never see again. One of the cooler items in the store is the Make It signature poster. So the signature poster, I just want to talk about it for one quick second. How many times as filmmakers do you go to the wrap party, and then at the wrap party, the producers give you a t-shirt, and then you wear the t-shirt, and then it gets really raggedy and you never wear it again, or you wear it to mow the lawn. Instead, producers buy a signature poster, have everybody on crew and cast sign it. Then you take it home and you frame it, and it's priceless. It lives forever. It's priceless. It will be cherished, and you never know what someone's tomorrow will look like. So these are very affordable. I think there's something like 15 or 20 bucks on the site. Signature poster, go get it. Last but not least, check out our cool hoodies, t-shirts, and I think we have a phone case there at Cotton Bureau. So cottonbureau.com. Cool thing about our Cotton Bureau partnership is that they reject 90% of all submitted designs. And so the fact that we got in and we're partners with them, we're super proud of that. The t-shirts are buttery soft. You will love them. And let us know if there's a city in there you want us to add. Currently, we have Nashville, Atlanta, New York, LA. So make it Nashville, make it Atlanta, make it New York, make it LA. So please support in that way as well. Everything that you can do in that regard, newsletter, apparel, whatever, it's all very, very helpful. So we appreciate you for that. That was a mouthful. What a diatribe. Micah, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. This has been just an absolute blast. And thanks for sharing a piece of your life with me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this. I appreciate being on the podcast, and you do a really good job. So thank you.
Thank you. That means the world to me coming from you. And as Nick would always say on our Indie Talks, be better, be creative, be engaged. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll all get together on this very podcast very soon. Micah, talk again?
Awesome. See you later.
All right, brother. Be good. Peace.